everybody, and welcome to the College Basketball Road to Madness show. We're on the eve of the NCAA Basketball Tournament. Our man Dynamite David is with it, and we're going to get into some bets for this NCAA Tournament. We're going to do both days, Thursday and Friday. We got a whole host of bets to get into. Are you ready to get into this and win us some money here?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we're going to break this down by just region by region, West, East, South, Midwest. Then we'll, at the end of each region, we'll give our sort of, I guess we'll call them futures. Probably advancement bets would be the most glowing term to put them in. I don't quite know what to categorize them in, but a little bit boosted odds for teams to maybe make it to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, and stuff like that. So let's get out west, and let's start with Gonzaga and Georgia State. Let's kick things off there. The spread on this one's 23.5, over under at 149. I'll tell you, most of the time on one seed type games, I'm pretty much always a pass. Is there anything here that you fell in love with, or are we on a quick pass tour on this one?
Yeah, this one's a little large for me. There's a couple one seeds I've got some plays in this year, but this is not one of them. I kind of looked at the under, but I think there's a potential for 100 plus here from Gonzaga. So not sure where that's going to fall. So yeah, I'm staying away.
I always find these hard because, you know, Gonzaga can make this score pretty much whatever they want. And how much do they want to put into this game and such. So basically I just stay away, especially total-wise, because like you said, Gonzaga could easily hang 100 on here, and yeah, it just messes with the total. So we'll move on to that one, to one. I do have a play-in, and it's probably one of the most interesting games in this field here. Memphis versus Boise State. 3-point favorites is Memphis. The total sits at 134 here. Where are you thinking on this one? Because I got a play on this one. Do you have any play on Memphis Boise State here?
I've got a lean. I haven't quite gone all in yet. Nothing. I don't really like the pick here, but I'm going to pick all the games tomorrow. I'm leaning Boise State, but it's not one I really like. I think this is going to be a close game. Memphis played pretty well down the stretch, but Boise State's just been really consistent all year. It's going to be just, you know, if the youth from Memphis can come together and overcome the steady experience and defensive style of Boise State.
Yeah, this is interesting because I think I started out earlier in the week probably pretty solid on Memphis, but I'm starting to gear myself toward Boise State. I know the Mountain West has had a bad time in the tournament in their history. I think some of that is just straight matchup based. They haven't always been given the best sort of matchups here, and then I just think this Boise State team probably can control the pace versus this Memphis team. You have basically two totally different styles of play here in this matchup. You have Memphis, who's trying to push the pace as fast as they can, both offensively and defensively, and then you have Boise State, who basically is just trying to slow this thing down as much as they can. So I think Boise State gets control of this pace, especially you see in tournament games that they can get control. So I'm going to ride Boise here, getting the points at plus 2.5. I'm also going to make a play on that under. I got 133.5. I just think in these tournament games, you know, you're going to start slow. You're shooting in different gyms that you aren't used to, and basically playing an over on Boise State is insane. They tried to make that San Diego State Boise State thing as low as they possibly could, and the game still went under on that. So I got two plays on this one. Boise State plus the 2.5. I talked myself into that, and then the under at 133.5. I think as long as this thing stays around 128, 129, I think you hit that under pretty hard.
Yeah, I'm pretty locked in on the Boise State getting the points here. Haven't quite pulled the trigger yet, but that's probably where I'm going to roll.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game, and let's go to Yukon and New Mexico State in this one. This one is an interesting one. A very good team in New Mexico State getting +7 in this one. Over under total sits at 131. Do you have a play in this one?
I have one. I'm really looking like I've got Yukon in my bracket here, but I think that plus points is almost too good to pass up for New Mexico State here. I think this is going to be a hard-fought, close battle. And Yukon really hasn't blown away many opponents this year throughout their schedule. So I think getting 7 is some pretty good value there.
Yeah, I got an interesting play here. It's going to be more of an advancement play than the actual play in the spread because I do respect Yukon. So I think I'm going to sit the game out. But at the end of this, I do have a play on New Mexico State because I fully think they're capable of playing with Yukon and, maybe advancing further than just the second round. I think this is a pretty good New Mexico State team, and they've shown the ability the last handful of years to maybe not always get the upset, but I remember 2 years ago when they lost to Auburn on that last second shot. They can play with the big boys for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This one's an upset favorite of everyone, and honestly, I really want to make the play on it, but I just can't pull the trigger. Vermont versus Arkansas. It's -5 for Arkansas, so you aren't even getting great value because everybody, one, looks at Vermont's record, and then two, probably looks at margin of victory and sees that the over-under sits at 130 and 9.5. I'm just a pass on this one as well because it's just too hard to call. I'm wondering if you're ready to play Vermont in this one or you think Arkansas can blow that out. I don't see how you can make a play on Arkansas really, really confidently at -5. But are you making a play on Arkansas?
Well, get ready to see it because you're going to see it with me here. I'm not buying the upset hype here. I think Vermont's played a really, really weak schedule. And it's quite the opposite for Arkansas. They've gone through quite the gauntlet. They've proven to compete with the best of the SEC, which is one of the better conferences in the country. I think 5.5 is kind of generous here. I like Arkansas minus the 5.5.
Yeah, that's where I'm pulling back. I think if this was 7, I'd probably pounce on Vermont. I don't know if I take the money line. Because also I have a bunch of futures in Arkansas. I think they're a very good basketball team. And I think that's where I'm upset that this is the matchup that Vermont got. Because I think they can beat a handful of these teams in this tournament. I don't know if they can beat Arkansas, though.
Yeah. I just think the defense of Arkansas is going to be too tough to overcome for Vermont. I think they're going to force them into Arkansas is going to force them into a lot of turnovers, and that's going to be the difference. I see Arkansas winning by double digits here, so I'm jumping all over the 5.5.
Yeah. All right. Next game up, Alabama versus Rutgers or Notre Dame. The odds are sort of projected on this one. No total projected, but Alabama 5.5 versus Rutgers. Alabama 3.5 versus Notre Dame. Honestly, this is basically a total pass on all sides. I don't think you could consistently say
pass on the play-in game too.
Right. This is just, if you're gambling on this, I don't know how you go, this team's going to show up today because these 3 teams, none of them show up on a consistent basis. I have a couple plays on Auburn's in advancement plays, but overall, I'm not touching Alabama versus Rutgers or Notre Dame. There's no telling what you're going to get here.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm staying away here. I didn't play the play-in game. I'm not going to play this one as well. I do have Alabama advancing on my bracket, though.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say in that play-in game, I take a peek at the under on Rutgers Notre Dame, but it's pretty low. So I just think that's just total stay away. All right, Texas Tech, Montana State. I guess the West is going to be boring for me because I don't have a ton of act here in the West. It's just sort of the good things that I thought could get upsets are playing teams that I don't really fancy being upset, and it goes like that. So Texas Tech, Montana State, I just, once again, I don't think, there could be an upset there in Texas Tech and Montana State. Are you seeing any upset on Texas Tech and Montana State here?
No, but, knee-jerk reaction, I looked at, I'm like, has Texas Tech beat anybody this year by 15.5 points? I'm not sure if they have. But I just don't think I can make this play. I was tempted to take the points in Montana State, but I don't believe it that much. And Texas Tech is so good defensively that they could shut them down completely. So, yeah, this is a big stay away from me.
Yeah, it's a stay away from me as well. I think Texas Tech probably too good a team to get pulled into the trap, and I don't. The Big Sky isn't one of those who always makes a lot of advancement in the NCAA tournament. Even a handful of 20 years ago when Weber State made a nice little run to the Sweet 16 with Harold Arsenault. It's just not a conference that does a lot of advancement overall in the tournament. All right, next up, I will have some action on this one.
Oh, yes.
I think you have some action on this one as well. I'll say it now, too. There's some advancement plays as well on this one. Michigan State versus Davidson in this matchup. Davidson, 1.5 point dogs in this one. The total sits at a nice little 140.5, so it's basically probably your basic average of a college basketball game total. I don't have a play on the total, but I got a couple plays here. What are you thinking in this one?
Yeah, I love Davidson here. I'll definitely take the 1.5, probably take the money line, and I definitely have some other bets on them we can discuss here in just a minute. But I just, eye test on both of these teams. I haven't seen much of anything I like from Michigan State all year. Very inconsistent. They go cold offensively. Okay defense, but Davidson, when I watch them, I see a really well-disciplined team that passes the ball well, can score the ball well. Many people can score the ball well. I just think all around they're the better team, and honestly should be the favorites here in my opinion.
Yeah, I got a couple plays here. One, Davidson plus the 1.5 is an automatic play, and then I did a couple alternate line plays. Davidson at minus 5.5 is plus 220. Davidson at minus 6.5 is plus 260. Davidson at minus 7.5 is plus 300. I easily think this could be one of those where Davidson wins by 10, 11 points. So you get pretty nice value if you push the line up and make Davidson favored. When I was looking at it, I think I'd make probably Davidson a 3-point favorite in this game if I was making the line. Michigan State's just getting the love because it's Michigan State. And so I'm really aggressive on this one. I'll be aggressive on this one too in my advancement play. So I got plus 1.5 for sure. And then I'm skipping the money line just because it's so low at the 1.5. Yeah. And I'm just taking alternate spreads, 5.5 to 20, 6.5 to 60, 7.5, 300. You could sort of maybe win 2 of 3 of those. You could win 3 of 3 of those and win a nice little combo package of money there. But I think Davidson runs away with this. I just think they're the better team. Michigan State hasn't shown the ability to sort of even come near being able to score with a team like Davidson.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Duke, Cal State, Fullerton, 18 and 143.5. Duke team didn't end the season well, but this isn't really a 2 seed that I think could probably give them a ton of problems. That being said, if I was going to take something in this, I think the plus 18 would probably be the play here. It seemed a little bit large, but I don't really have a play in this game. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, this is another stay away from me. I think Duke could come out and want to get some offensive rhythm going, and may put a bunch up on them here just because they can. I do see Duke struggling very near future, but not this round. Yeah.
All right. So those are our plays out west. Let's get into some advancement ones. I have a 1, 2, 3 of them here. We'll start out with me. I got Alabama Elite 8 at plus 7 to 1. I mentioned I didn't want to touch them in the first round, and it's basically because we could get them in the Final Four. We could get them losing by 20 in the first round. There's not a lot of middle ground there, but I look at their bracket. If they win that first round or the second round matchup versus Texas Tech, I do think there's a chance they can make a run. I don't know if they can beat Gonzaga for a second time, but Elite Eight at 7-1. I think that's pretty good value. So I'd throw a little on that. And then New Mexico State at Sweet 16 at plus 12-1. I look at their sort of matchup here. If they beat Yukon, Arkansas, Vermont winner, I think they could, move on. I think they match up pretty well with Arkansas. They play a very similar style of basketball. 12-1 odds to get to the Sweet 16. I think that's pretty good value. And then the last aforementioned Davidson, I have Sweet 16 and Elite 8. 650 to go to the Sweet 16, 14-1 to go to the Elite 8. I think that's really, really good value, especially if you think they can beat Duke. I think they could ride through all the way into that Elite 8. Really good value. It's 6.5-1 to get to Sweet 16. So you got any advancement ones here out west?
Yeah, I have two, and they're the last two that you just mentioned. I think the Davidson 650 Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 1400 are both really good value, which I see them, that Duke game will be good, but I think they're completely capable of upsetting Duke, and then probably an easier game in the Sweet 16 round if they can get past Duke. So it really falls well for them to make a little run, at least up until Gonzaga. But I look for Davidson to go pretty deep in the tournament.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that'd be good value for your money there. All right, let's switch things out into the South here. Let's start out with Arizona State versus Wright State or Bryant. 16.5 points probably spread for Wright State, 17 for Bryant. No play on this for me. Though if I was taking one, I'd probably take Arizona. I think both these teams have a lot of flaws. I'd also look at an over. If Bryant advanced between Arizona and Bryant, there could be 180 points scored in that game. But my guess is that total would be up in the mid 150s. So no play on that number one seed for me. Any play on that one for you?
No, I'm not touching that one at all.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the interesting 8-9 matchup. I think these teams are basically just mirror clones of one of another. Seton Hall, 1-point favorite versus TCU. Total sits at 130. I'm going to be stupid and take Seton Hall, but it wouldn't be my most aggressive play. But I do think Seton Hall's a little undervalued here. I think they probably a little bit better than TCU, but it's not something I'm very aggressive on at all, and I certainly would not be like just thinking Seton Hall can roll past this game, but I do have down Seton Hall as one of my straight bets.
I've got TCU on my bracket. My play here on the betting is I like the under 130.5. I think both of these teams are going to struggle a little bit getting the ball in the basket. They're going to be very physical with each other. And so I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game. You mentioned, first-round jitters, strange gym, playoff competitiveness. I'm going to take the under 130.5. I think this is somewhere around 120-ish. Maybe 125, but I think you're sitting pretty safe under 130.
Yeah, I think that's probably a decent play, but not aggressive, but we'll see. All right, we'll move to Houston UAB. UAB getting a lot of love. I don't totally know why. I think if you watched North Texas the other day, have to go to overtime with the Texas State. I begin to get a little bit more nervous here from the Conference USA selection. I just don't think they were that deep a conference. And I think, the American Conference was a little deeper than people think. The odds, though, 8.5 seemed a little bit big. Maybe that's why people are going after them. But I think people forget how good Houston was last year. They made a run through this tournament. I think they're terribly underseeded because I guess they sort of didn't go in to their conference tournament playing all that well, but I think that might have had more to do with them being wrapped up basically 3 weeks before that. They pretty much cruised the conference tournament. Yeah. So 8.5, 138. I don't have a play on it, but I don't think I'd take UAB. But you got a play on this one?
Yeah, going through my notes, I had UAB written down. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I need to respect Houston a little bit more. This is a team that was right up there in the top 10 for a long time this year. And like you said, there was a couple games where they had everything pretty much at hand. They rested, and then that conference tournament, they blew through it. They handled Memphis in the championship game. Wasn't even an issue. I think they could win this game pretty large, but I'm not confident enough to take the -8.5. I think it's just to sit back and see how exactly Houston performs and maybe make a play on them in the second round.
Yeah, I think probably more value of them as they move on later in the tournament. Now, that being said, if this goes down, in and around 6 with the way the money's coming in on UAB, I'm not going to lie, I'll probably start to grab Houston because I just think UAB is getting a little overvalued because they have one really, really good player. I'm not sure how good that team is. They very, very luckily ran through that conference tournament. There were a couple games there where they probably should have lost. So I'm staring at that one for sure.
I'll tell you one thing to look for. If Illinois were to get past the first round, I'd love to see Houston getting points against Illinois. I'd be all on that all day long.
Yeah, definitely so. All right. Speaking of Illinois, we got Illinois versus Chattanooga here. This one is an interesting one. It seems like back-to-back years that they've sort of given Illinois a rough little draw in these opening rounds. Illinois at 7 is the line, over-under at 135. What are you looking at here? Do you have a play on this game?
I think 7.5 is a little bloated. I really want to take Chattanooga here, but I've seen them not be quite as dominant as they've been in years past, winning games a little closer. I mean, we saw the buzzer beater in their championship game. They may not have what it takes to knock off a big dog this year, but it wouldn't surprise me. For that reason, I'm going to stay away from this first round, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I got a couple plays on Chattanooga here just because I think, one, I think you'll see I'm going to fade a lot of the Big Ten teams here, especially with teams like Chattanooga who I think are, at least on their level. If you told me Chattanooga played in the Big Ten, I don't think I'd be stunned if they had the same record as, say, a Michigan or a Wisconsin or, like that. I think they're in and around on that level. So I'm taking the 7.5. I'm going to take the money line. Also, I look at there are two alternate lines here. -2.5 for Chattanooga, pays 375, and -3.5 plays 450. I think people think in March there are all these buzzer beaters and everything's sort of like a 1-point game. But really, mostly what happens, it's a 3 or 4 point game those last 20 seconds, and the other team tends to foul, over and over, and that lead gets more in the 6-7 range. So I think if you think Chattanooga can win, I think there's value in taking that 2.5 and 3.5. and really grabbing that nice sort of 375 and 450 value, plus the straight up money line 280. I think the spread 7.5, really, really good value though, for an Illinois team who's just been sort of inconsistent. The other thing is Chattanooga has size that can match up with Illinois. So I think there's really, really good value there with Chattanooga. All right. Speaking of the aforementioned Michigan, Colorado State and Michigan here. And I'm going to tell you, one, that I took it at a number before the Michigan guard got ruled out, and the numbers dropped significantly now. So Michigan's 2-point favorites now on the thing, 138.5 on this. And I'll tell you, Sunday, I was all about thinking Michigan would advance here, but I'm thinking Colorado State is the better team. I think I'll just end up going down with the Mountain West here. I think Boise State, Colorado State, and San Diego State, all really, really good teams. So I'm taking Colorado State here plus the 1.5 in this game. I'm also going to ride the over at 136.5. Both these teams are pretty solid on the offensive end and sort of mid-tier on the defensive end. I think that there's a game where there'll be some scoring in this one, and it played in the 70s. I think it's this game. So Michigan State, Colorado State. I have the 1.5 and the over 136.5.
Yeah, I love Colorado State here, and this is another case of where I'm going to kind of fade the public here. I saw a thing just a few moments ago that Michigan right now is the most popular upset on the bracket. I guess just because they're Michigan. But I do have a little bit of trust issues with Colorado State because they seem to kind of drop the ball anytime they play the higher ranked teams. And I think that's because of their streaky shooting that they run into.
Are we considering Michigan, though, like a higher ranked team?
Not really. An undeserving team, in my opinion, for the tournament, and due to an inflated opinion of the Big Ten. So I'm taking Colorado State. I've got them at +2.5. I didn't look at any adjusted lines yet. I'll probably take some more there because I could see them winning by more. Yeah. I think this is a no-brainer right here.
Well, it's a good sign we're both on Colorado State, which probably means the Mountain West is going to go over and they lose by 20 in each game. So that should be a fun watch together for sure. Let's move on to Tennessee versus Longwood here. Tennessee, big favorites in this one, 17-point favorites. Total sits at 132.5. I don't think Longwood can get the upset here, but I'd be very stunned if Tennessee could cover this 17 points and a half. I think Longwood can just score, too many points in this game. And speaking of that, I think this total is pretty low for, Tennessee tends to slow down the pace versus really good teams, but teams on this level that are pretty open and give up points, they tend to score solidly versus. So I think this game's easily played in the 70s. So I'm riding the over in this game, and I'm taking that +17. I don't think I'd grab the upset in this one, though. I'd probably stare at it, but Longwood isn't used to this tournament stuff, so I think it might be a spirited first half, and then things start to fade away in the second half. Granted, I don't know if you can ever trust a Rick Barnes team. I heard a bad stat the other day. He's 1-11-1 against the spread in the NCAA tournament since I think Texas went to the Elite Eight 15 years ago. That's not a positive sign, really. So I'm taking Longwood plus that 17 and the over 132.5. What's your feel on this one?
Yeah, my best bet is definitely the over here. I think that's a no-brainer. May look and see if you could buy even higher value. I think this is easily going to go over 140. Yeah. So see what odds you can get there. Maybe buy it up a little bit. I'm tempted to take Longwood plus the points here too because I know Tennessee doesn't really blow out a lot of opponents. But I think I've seen earlier in the year some of the opponents that we did blow out are teams that we got in shootouts with. So if Tennessee is hitting their shots, I think this could be something where they come out and win big. Would not surprise me at all if it's a very close game. But I could also see it being – I don't see Longwood winning outright in any scenario. But I see it's either going to be a close game. Barnes
scenario.
Yes. I don't think a loss is coming here. I think you could have a close scare if you struggle offensively. But they haven't really struggled offensively as of late. They've been in kind of a groove. Some players that were shooting poorly earlier in the year are shooting better. So if that shooting's there, they could potentially win this one big. But safest money is the over here for sure.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we'll move on to Ohio State, Loyola, Chicago. You're going to have to explain this to me because the game opened 1.5-point favorites, Loyola, Chicago. I'm up to plus 1.5 for Loyola, Chicago. Total sits at 135. If we're dating back to tournament history, Loyola Chicago has it. Ohio State doesn't. If we're dating to play, Loyola Chicago has it. Ohio State doesn't. What is the advantage of taking Ohio State here other than they are a very large school who plays mediocre basketball?
I tell you what, I tried to get on board with Ohio State a whole bunch this year, and every time I tried, they let me down. They remind me a lot of Michigan State, just really inconsistent offensively. They rely on a few hot guards to get streaky shots, and if that's not there, they can just completely disappear in some of these games. And maybe they were looking at Loyola from a month into the season. They were having their struggles, not quite as impressive as they'd been in years past, but they've really turned it on down the stretch. And I love Loyola here. I've got them at getting 1.5. And if you tell me some of those advanced odds there, I'll probably buy some more points or sell some points there to get some more money.
Yeah, definitely. So I looked at a couple of them. They weren't great, which tells me they all think that Loyola Chicago's the winner, but for some reason people are putting all their money on Ohio State, because I think I looked at the 2.5 and the 3.5, and it was like 125 and 135, and I was like, well, that's not a whole lot of value to flip the line 3 or 4 points. So I was like, all right, I'll just take the plus 1.5 and ride myself to victory in this one. I'm honestly stunned that the money is coming in on Ohio State, especially since we've basically seen Loyola Chicago play in this tournament for 4 or 5 years now, and they always are a pretty consistent team out of at least advancing out of that first round. So riding that one. All right, next up on the slate, Villanova, Delaware in this one. I don't really have a play in this one. 16 for Villanova, over under sits at 133. Anything for you in this one?
No, I mean, you could probably talk me into Villanova minus the points, but I don't think the risk is worth the reward there. I'd say just sit back and wait for the next round with Nova.
Yeah, the thing I'd be scared with Nova here is they just sort of pack it in pretty quick. They get to a 12, 15-point lead and just sort of ride this thing out. They play at a pretty slow pace anyway, so I think if they get up 10, 11, 12, this thing just – them bleeding the shot clock down, getting a solid shot, and putting this one away. So I don't think I could make myself take Villanova, but I just don't think the Colonial's very good, even though Delaware had a nice little solid run there towards the end. It's just not as good a conference as it has been in the past. All right, so I got a couple advancements here in the southern region. Not as many as in the West, but one is UTC. Sweet 16 sits at 10-1 there. I thought that was really, really nice play on that one, especially with their matchup versus Illinois. I think they could handle that one. The Houston matchup's a little trickier, but once again, I think this helps because UTC has size. They have big guys, so it's not going to be one of these where they're going to get bullied around, and basically they're playing two teams who like to bully you as well. So I think there's pretty solid matchups in there. 10-1 seems like pretty good value in that one. Colorado State, Sweet 16, 8-1. I really, really kind of like that one. The more I sort of like them in their first round matchup, you get them in a matchup versus Tennessee. I don't know if they can handle that kind of physicality defense, but it's something they'd be used to. Haven't played Boise State, haven't played San Diego State, so they're kind of used to those type of games. So I don't think it'd stun them outright, that sort of physicality and slow pace. So 8-1 seemed like pretty good value to me. And then Villanova, Final Four, 4-1. I think they got a pretty easy path, at least to the Elite Eight there. So I see pretty good value at 4-1 for me, and a couple advancement props out of the South.
I've just got one here, and it's kind of contradicts what I was saying earlier. But like you said, there's the Rick Barnes factor. I've got Longwood at 20-1 odds to get to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
I think if they get past Tennessee, it's anyone's game in that second round against either Colorado State or Michigan. I think Tennessee's a tougher matchup for them there. So if they can get past Tennessee, they can very well beat the next team up. So I don't think it's going to happen, but at that 20-1 value for 2 wins is pretty good money. Yeah,
we were sort of looking at it the same thing. In that second round matchup, it's basically all 4 of those teams I think you could see advancing into the Sweet 16. So it's probably worth taking a value shot on a couple of those. All right, let's move to the East region. Let's go Baylor, Norfolk State here. No play for me on this one. You probably could make me take Baylor at 21.5 because I think Norfolk probably will struggle to get to about 50 points, and it's probably pretty easy that Baylor can get to 70. But I'm not in love with it. I probably won't watch a ton of this game, so that makes it even less reason to bet on it. 137.5 the total. Any play on this one for you?
No, I don't have anything here.
All right, let's move on to the 8-9, North Carolina versus Marquette. This one is another matchup of teams that are inconsistent as inconsistent can be. I didn't like this line, North Carolina at 3, 150.5 on the total. I actually have it at 152.5 right now. So I don't really have a play on the game. I have a couple plays on North Carolina in advancement, but I think this thing goes under. You know Marquette's going to try to slow this pace down. They aren't going to want to get into an up-and-down game with North Carolina. And if North Carolina's having one of their off days, I think it goes under. And I just think this pace will be slow. So I think 152.5. And honestly, I'm just going to wait till game day and see how high this climbs because everybody's just going to jump all over, the over in this game.
Yeah, I'm taking the under here for sure. I think I stay on the under all the way down to 150, maybe even a little further than that. I think this game is going to kind of be nasty, and I don't see Marquette carrying their share of the points here. Now, they could have a close matchup where they both are in the 70s-ish, but I don't see Marquette getting out of 70. So unless North Carolina goes off for one of their 90-point scoring games, this thing's not going to go over.
Yeah, and I just don't think the pace will be where North Carolina could get to one of those 90-point scoring games. No play for you on the spread here. It's too...
Now, I've got Carolina in my bracket. I think they should win this, but Marquette may be able to muck it up enough to take it. So I don't feel very confident about the spread pick here. Probably just play the under.
Yeah, definitely so. All right. St. Mary's versus Indiana. This hits at 2. I haven't seen an over-under on that one yet, but I did have St. Mary's marked down as a 2 here. I just think they're a better team. They'll out-execute Indiana to death, and you don't even get somebody who can sort of control the pace. Indiana wants to play slow defensive game. St. Mary's will just laugh at them and backdoor cut them into layups the whole game. So St. Mary's at 2. I'm all over that one for sure.
Yeah, I like St. Mary's here as well. Interestingly enough, when I filled out my bracket, I had Wyoming advancing here. I think Wyoming was more capable of beating St. Mary's than Indiana. So now that Indiana's made it through, I'm going to take St. Mary's minus the points here. I think they're going to have an easy ride to the next round.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, here's an interesting one. UCLA and Akron. There's a weird sort of a double thing going on here. There's a lot of money coming in on Akron, but there's a lot of money on UCLA to sort of make runs in this tournament and come out and make it to the Final Four. So there's sort of a split thought here. First round game, I think a lot of people like Akron because how they closed in that MAC tournament. But I think people think if UCLA can get out of this, they can make a run to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. I certainly think they're capable of that. I'm a little nervous, their depth. Basically, UCLA has 5 really good players and nothing else. So I got a couple plays in this. The odds are 14 for UCLA, 129.5 on the total. Actually, I'm playing the first half in this one. Akron first half plus 7.5. I think they could stay with UCLA for about a half. I think they'll pull away in this one. I might throw a little on the Akron money line at 8-1 because I think there's decent value there. But my play on this one's first half Akron plus 7.5.
I like the Akron plus 13.5 for the game here. I think this is something where I could see this being one of those scare games where UCLA gets down early. Everybody thinks UCLA is going to get knocked off, and they claw back and have just enough to get through this game. But I don't see them covering this spread. I think Akron's been playing really well down the stretch, and they're going to keep this one within that 14.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, next up on the slate, Texas versus Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, the darling of the metric people. Texas has Chris Beard as their coach. I think that's about all they have. Texas favored by 1 in this one. Total sits at 124.5. I really sort of wanted to take that under, but it's a little lower than I really want to, especially since I think Virginia Tech wins this game. I have Virginia Tech in this one. I think they probably win this game outright, but plus 1.5. I'm taking the points in this.
Yeah, I love Virginia Tech here as well. I've got a few futures on them, but I think they're going to win this game pretty easily. I haven't seen anything really that impresses me from Texas. Every time they have a chance to impress me, they let me down. They pretty much took care of business against the teams below them, but never really stepped up and took care of any of the teams above them. And Virginia Tech did just that in their tournament and has been playing pretty well. So I like Virginia Tech here, the hot hand.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the next one. And I've had a little bit of a feel on this one now. I might be leaning towards an Ivy here. Purdue, -16, Yale, +16. Total sits at 143 here. I'm really interested with this one because I started to look at the metrics, and it's interesting how sort of similar these teams play at pace, play at offense, play at defense. Purdue clearly has the better players, but it's sort of stylistically, they might play the exact same game, and I think Yale can probably hang with them. So I do like that sort of 16 sitting here at Yale. I'll say I got a couple of advancement props here on Yale too, because I think they might be able to stick around enough to spring the upset here. So I also like that 10-1 money line. I think that could be there. We've never really sort of seen Purdue make a real strong run under Matt Painter. So I just think 10-1, probably pretty good value in that one. I'm also looking a little bit at that under 141.5. I think that could definitely hit too, because I think Yale will try to slow it down even more than they already do.
Yeah, I'm not as confident in the spread pick as you are. I think the under may be the better play. I have nothing here, nothing I really felt good enough to bet on. The under may hit because I think Yale's going to do everything they can to slow this game down. But I just don't see them being able to slow down Purdue's efficiency in the paint in this one. I see it could be, full shot clock possessions up and down each time. But if Purdue's getting a basket each time, it's not going to matter either way. So I still think Purdue's going to win this one big. You may be right here, but I just wasn't quite as confident as you.
Well, I see it for Yale to win. You'd be right. Where they'd have to miss, Purdue would have to miss, and then that last 5 minutes, it's 5-6 point game, and Purdue's, it starts to creep into their heads. Why is Yale, sort of neck and neck with us here, and they just get a little tight. Yale is like, what do we have to lose, and starts throwing in some shots. I don't foresee it happening, but I certainly think it could be done. I think the pace matchup sort of sits there where Purdue will play the exact same style as Yale. So Yale won't be having to try to, keep pace with better, stronger athletes. They're just going to have to see if they can execute as well as Purdue can execute in the half court. All right, next up, this one I grow angrier and angrier at, basically, that these two teams are playing each other. It sort of drives me.
Guarantees one to the next round.
Yes, I know. But one of them is going home, and we're going to hear how these small schools don't belong. Granted, San Francisco has won national championships, just so everyone is aware. I couldn't pull the trigger on the odds on this one. San Francisco's 1.5 point favorite in this, 137.5 on the total in this one. I made one bet because, I think my loyalty lies with San Francisco. It lies with both, but I've decided that it truly lies with San Francisco. I love this Dons team, so I made a wager on this on an alternate line, San Francisco -6.5 plus 260. Maybe San Francisco is just overall the better team, and Murray State, isn't quite as good as we all thought, and San Francisco puts it on them pretty good. They've played pretty tough competition all season long in the non-conference and in their conference. So I did an alternate line, San Francisco -6.5 plus 260. I thought there was a little bit of value there, but that's all I did for that one. I just will remain angry the whole time as this game's being played.
Yeah, I tend to like Murray State here a little bit more than you do. I think they're going to be able to score pretty well. San Francisco, they've had a pretty solid year competing in a tough West Coast conference this year, tougher than it's been in years past. But I guess the line's moved a little bit. I actually have Murray State written down as -1.5, so I don't know if they opened up as favorites and now they're dogs, or which way it's gone. But I like Murray State here. I think we're going to get the in-state matchup in the next round.
Yeah, I think that's probably sort of what they were aiming for. But I'm going to ride with my Dons, and then they trot Bill Russell out there in the matchup versus Kentucky, and we'll see if they can handle that. Anyway, next up, Kentucky St. Peter's. I have nothing on this one. I'd go Kentucky just because I think St. Pete's really, really bad. But once again, I think Kentucky probably staring at that game in the next round, knowing they're going to get a little bit of a push and might pull back, certainly with some of the injury history of a couple of their key players have had all season long. So 15.5, 133. I'm just a pass, but you got anything on this one?
Yeah, I like Kentucky minus the points here. I think this is sometimes with these heavy favorites going into the tournament, if they don't have the momentum going their way, they can use these small teams to beat up on and kind of build their confidence a little bit. And I think this is the kind of situation Kentucky's in here now. They need to see that ball going through the basket, get the rhythm back from when they were one of the top 5 teams in the country. And I think they're going to do that today. They're really going to cut their teeth on St. Peter's, and they're going to win by more than 20.
Yeah. All right. I got a couple advancement ones here. I'm going to start with North Carolina, Sweet 16, 4-1. I think they'd probably be only about maybe a 2-1 favorite against or underdog against Baylor. So I see a little bit of value there. Elite 8, 9-1. If they can get to past Baylor, they're probably a go to make a run towards the Final Four. So I think that actually the Elite 8, 9-1 is probably better value than the Sweet 16 one, because if they beat Baylor, I think they're going to the Elite 8. And then Final Four at 22-1. So if we get good Carolina, there's a chance for it. If we get bad Carolina, that's gone in the first round, and you don't really have to worry about it for very long and sweat it out too much. The one I did really like, Virginia Tech to the Elite 8, 12-1. I told you about this one yesterday. I think their sort of matchup is pretty favorable here. You got that game versus Texas, then you got a game versus Purdue, who I am already sort of thinking Yale can play with them. I certainly think Virginia Tech can play with Purdue here. That gets them to the Sweet 16 in a matchup, versus Kentucky, Murray State, or San Francisco. So I think they're 12-1. Pretty good value there for Virginia Tech. They're probably one of the hottest teams going into the tournament. I talked about Yale. Yale Sweet 16, 12-1. If you think they're going to beat Purdue, Virginia Tech, Texas matchup in the next round. It's not exactly a powerhouse sitting there in the second round. So, Sweet 16 for Yale, sitting there at 12-1, pretty good value. And then my boys, the Dons, Sweet 16 at +7-1, Elite 8 at 20-1. So I think the Dons can make a run. Now, if we hear after the game that the coach had already accepted a job somewhere, I'm going to be a little disappointed. But hopefully the Dons can make a run here. 7-1 on Sweet 16, 21 on Elite 8 for me.
Yeah, I've got Virginia Tech as well, Elite 8 run, plus 1,200. I've got them going to the Sweet 16 in my bracket, so getting 1,200 odds to go one bit further is pretty good value, I think. And then my other one I like, I had them getting knocked off by Wyoming, but now that my Wyoming Cowboys aren't there, I like St. Mary's. And Sweet 16 St. Mary's at 7-1.
Yeah, I liked that one as well. I looked at that one.
You look at that, they're coming. They're probably going to I think they're going to take care of Indiana pretty easily, especially after that tough battle Indiana had last night. And then, you could either get a surprise in Akron or a really battled UCLA. I think it favors St. Mary's to get those 7-1 odds to get to Sweet 16 is pretty good value.
I think they'd relish a matchup with UCLA too, as UCLA tends to find ways to avoid them in the regular season, playing them wise. So I think St. Mary's would really, really like that one. All right, let's move to the Midwest, and I will say, this is where my most bets are. This is where my most advancement bets are. The more I looked at this region, I just see teams who tend to underwhelm in the tournament. You got Bill Self in Kansas. You have 6'11s in LSU and Iowa State, who I don't think anyone can trust. You have Wisconsin, a common disappointment. You have Bruce Pearl down there. You have an Iowa team in there. And a Providence team. You have a lot of teams that don't tend to bring you a lot of faith in the tournament here. So I got some craziness going on in this one.
Not to mention LSU and Iowa State sitting there is probably the worst first-round matchup in the tournament.
Well, yes, that will come into play in my advancement for sure. I will say that. So, all right, let's kick things off. Kansas versus Texas Southern, or Corpus Christi. Texas Southern won last night. I think that line sits at 19. I'm a pass on this one. Anything for you?
No, this is an easy pass.
All right, let's go to the big one here, because I think this one's really, really interesting. San Diego State, 2-point favorites on Creighton, 119.5 is the total. I've shifted a little bit more towards San Diego State, but really, I'm more in the San Diego State advancement futures, because I think if Kansas plays San Diego State, I look at that and I think San Diego State can sit there and bully them and make Kansas play a game they don't want to play. But I think Creighton can sort of play this slow down pace, efficiency game, win this game, and then probably get beat, overall by Kansas. So I really just struggled with this one, but 2-point favorites for San Diego State. Total sits at 119. You got any plays on this game?
I really like San Diego State here. I'm not taking this bet. The over-under line at 119.5 makes you think that they think San Diego State's going to control the pace of this game, which they do in most of their games defensively. They really slow down these games. I've got San Diego State advancing, but I don't really have a play here.
Yeah, I got a couple plays, not on the spread, but on the totals. Like you mentioned, since Creighton lost their point guard, a couple weeks ago, they've started to really play slow because they don't really have a point guard to guide them, so they tend to grind out games. San Diego State knows no other way, so the total at under 119.5, I'm taking, and then under 100 or less at 575. If you saw in that Villanova, Creighton title game, that pretty much hit there. It's not as good as value as you usually get for under 100, but you got two teams who I think, at least certainly in that first half, will be really, really slow and cautious to start. So I think you got a chance on that one. So I got two plays on that one. I don't really have a play on the game, but under 119.5 and under 100 or less at plus 575. I thought presented decent value, especially knowing that these two teams are probably going to play pretty slow in this one. It's probably just how efficiently will Creighton hit their shots in that matchup. All right, Iowa and Richmond. I was a little bullish on Richmond to start this one out, but I'm not quite as bullish on them in this one. But Iowa at -10. Over-under sits at 150.5. I thought that was a little high even for an Iowa team. Richmond doesn't tend to play at that kind of pace, but any plays on this one for Iowa-Richmond for you?
I've got two. I like Richmond. I've got them plus 10.5. Yeah. I'm tempted to throw a little on a money line here too, just because they're playing so well right now. But Iowa's been playing pretty well lately too, so that kind of makes me back off of it a little bit. But I love getting the 10.5, and I also like the under 150.5. I think that's a little inflated. I see this game being, about probably 70 to 60 in that area. So look about 130 to 140. I think 150 is a little high. I'd probably take the under all the way down to 145 here. So think that's a safe play. So I like both those bets there.
Yeah. I did one thing with it. I went alternate line Richmond at -2.5. That was 6-1.
Wow.
If you think Richmond's going to win, money line wise, Iowa doesn't tend to get in, one possession games. They're either going to defend poorly, Richmond's going to be able to score, and this thing's, going to be played, between a 5 and 6 point game. So I thought that 2.5, pretty good value there at 6-1 value. So I definitely look at that if you think Richmond's going to win. If you don't think Richmond's going to win and you're just making a spread play like you, that's probably not worth, giving up 12.5 points there. But 6-1 just seemed like a lot on -2.5 in a game I think Richmond can win. Basically, you're saying 1 in every 6 times they play, Richmond will win once by 2.5. I think if they played 6 times, Richmond probably is winning 1.5 to 2 of those games, and probably by more than 2.5 points. So I thought there was really, really good value in that to make a run at a nice little 6-1 shot on a game. All right, Providence, South Dakota State. I'm not going to lie. I've had a full switcheroo on this one. I've talked myself out of Providence. I like Providence. I love their coach. To get this team to where they're winning the Big East basically is really, really impressive. But I just think the South Dakota State team is really, really good. I think they're actually better probably than Providence. So I've totally sort of flipped on this. I'm going all in on the Jackrabbits here. I mentioned about alternate lines. I'm going alternate lines, South Dakota State -3.5, 186, 4.5 plus 220, 5.5 plus 260. I just think the Jackrabbits are really, really good. They're experienced. They might even have more talent, actually, than Providence. We've seen Providence just sort of win games on, I don't want to say just overall luck, but there's just been some shots that have been made that I don't think you can count on to constantly be made, certainly when the pressure ratchets up in the tournament and you're one and done. They didn't have a great showing in the Big East tournament, so I'm going to go heavy on South Dakota State here.
Yeah, I couldn't make a play here. My gut says Providence, but they don't really blow out anybody. And but South Dakota State, like you said, is very experienced. I may be confusing them with another team, but I believe their whole starting lineup is super seniors.
Yes.
Coming back from COVID, so they're all 6-year seniors. I don't think you could have a more experienced team than that in college basketball. So these guys aren't going to get rattled. They're not going to succumb to the pressure, I don't think. And Providence has proven that they play around with these close games, and this might not be one that they can play around with and escape. Yeah. So you may be right. I may look at some of those lines and make some plays there, but right now I'm at a complete stay away.
Yeah. The other thing is a lot of these guys, are all from the same area, so it's not even like super seniors. They've basically been playing in and around together and with each other since elementary and middle school. So they have cohesion. They know what they're doing, and I wonder if Providence can hang with that. Now they're really physical. And that tends to be what gives South Dakota State some problems. But I just think the experience comes in on that one. All right. You mentioned it, LSU, Iowa State. LSU is 5-point favorites, total at 123.5. I don't know how anybody wagers on this game. The thing you could convince me is LSU's going to make a run without a coach, I guess, but I'm not 100% sold on that. I'm more sold that they're all putting their names in the transfer portal right now and seeing what's out there. Maybe I grab Iowa State in that 5, but they've barely been able to score 50 points the last month of the season, so I'm a little nervous on that. Maybe make a play on that 123.5 would be the only thing I see, but I don't see a lot, and I don't even see this game being on my TV screen a ton.
Well, is that 123.5 you said?
Yes.
because I've got it written down here, and I wrote it down this morning. I've got it at 127.5.
Yeah. Well, it's probably moved. I'm looking at FanDuel odds, so maybe theirs has moved. So if you can get 127.5, I'd probably grab it now.
Yeah. I've got the underplay here.
Yeah.
I think this game is going to be like 60-50, maybe. Both of these are defensive teams and struggle offensively. It's just going to be a terrible basketball game. And we don't know how, like you said, we don't know how much LSU's got left or want to even. They may just be ready to go and start scouting their new schools.
Yeah, it probably goes one or two ways. Either they're going to play really motivated and they'll make some freak run to the Final Four, or they're going to score 30 points and throw out a complete dud here. The problem is I'm not 100% sure Iowa can get to 40. So looking at under 100 as well, you might want to take a peek on this game as well.
Well, and that being said, like you said, even if LSU goes on a run, they win, what, 70-50?
Yeah.
60-50, they win, but it's still on this underplay. I don't see this game going very high at all.
Yeah, I don't think so as well. So that's an interesting one to sort of peruse. All right, let's get to Wisconsin and Colgate. I'm telling you right now, this is my big upset for the thing. I think Colgate makes a run here. This Wisconsin team does not blow me away at all. They've really been poor towards the end of the year. So I have Colgate plus the 7.5, and I have the money line plus 270. I also have an under on the 139.5. I think this one will be a creepy crawly pace as well. Colgate doesn't play as slow as you probably think, but I think they certainly will make an adjustment here and see if they can drag Wisconsin into just playing one possessions games and see if they can get this close in the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I've got Colgate plus the points. I don't have a money line play yet, but I think they're going to keep this thing close for sure and probably have a good shot at the upset.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to another interesting one here. USC Miami. I've had a little flip on this one too. I'm going to ride Miami in this one. They're not deep. It's a little bit like UCLA where they got 5 really good players and the rest is sort of a makeshift. But I just think Miami's probably a little bit better than they look. I like Jim Larinaga in these type of situations. USC's 1.5 point favorite, total at 141. Where are you riding on this one?
I love Miami here. I may look at some adjusted lines. Right now, I've got them plus the 1.5. I think they're playing really good basketball. Gave Duke a run for their money in that ACC tournament. So I'm going to take Miami here over a USC team that has let me down, especially going down the stretch. I think this is one team trending up, one team trending down. Really like Miami.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Miami too. I'm taking the plus 1.5 also in this one. All right. Auburn versus Jacksonville State. A month ago, the way this Jacksonville State team was playing, I really wanted to sort of pencil them in for an upset, but they really closed bad that last month. Auburn 17-point favorites at 137. You got any play on this one?
Had this been Jacksonville,
Yes.
I might have liked an upset. Jacksonville State, not quite as impressive this season. This is kind of one similar to Kentucky. I like Auburn minus the points here just because they need to get their flow back, get their confidence back moving forward into these tougher games. And they're going to have a few games, I think, that they may have a little bit of a challenge in the second round against Miami, but I think they're going to handle this one pretty well and come in and win by 20 plus.
Yeah, I would throw like a free bet or something on the Jacksonville State money line at 10-1. Decent value there. A month ago, they were really playing well, and I think everybody thought they were sort of at one point going to end up with like a 12 seed if they continue to play as they did. They dropped off. Maybe they find it. Maybe they don't. I don't know. 10-1 just seemed like a lot for a team a month ago we all thought was playing really good basketball. Now, they haven't played good basketball for a month, but they've had a couple weeks off. Maybe they find it. 10-1. Shot in the dark. pretty good value on that. All right. I will say I have a lot of advancement stuffs in this one just because I think this is the wild sort of bracket here. So
let me give my one first.
Why don't you give your one, and then I'll go through a bunch of them here.
I'm sure you have this amongst your list here, but Colgate Sweet 16 at 20-1 odds. If they get that upset of Wisconsin, we talked about it. You get LSU or Iowa State next. I think they're potentially could be favored in that matchup. So I like their chances at 20-1 to get to the Sweet 16.
Oh yeah, Colgate Sweet 16, 20-1. I think that's worth a complete shot. They match up all right versus Wisconsin, and then you're being fed either a weird LSU team or an Iowa State team who struggles to score 50 points. And in that case, I do think Colgate Iowa State would be in and around a very, very close spread. So yes, I have Colgate Sweet 16, 20-1 as well. I talked about it earlier. San Diego State, if they can get that matchup with Kansas, I think they can make a really, really deep run. So I have Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final Four in this one. 6-1 for Sweet 16, 14-1 for Elite 8, and 33-1 for Final Four. If they can get that matchup versus Kansas, I think they could give them problems. Certainly the way they control pace in a game. I'm not as confident in Creighton, but at 8-1 on Sweet 16, I think if they match up versus Kansas, they don't match up quite as well, but I think they can push them a little bit. And you've seen the way Kansas plays recently in the tournament with Bill Self. So, I think having both those teams, both San Diego State and Creighton, probably pretty solid value to take them right now because you're getting one of them to advance into the second round and getting your matchup with Kansas there. Elite 8 for Creighton was 16, and you mentioned it. They're on that weird sort of side of the bracket where it's Providence, South Dakota State, Richmond, Iowa. I mean, once you're in that Sweet 16, if you get by Kansas, it's a road where you could easily see yourself in the Elite 8. I'm going to take a real chance on South Dakota State because they got really, really long shot odds. And we talked about that part of the bracket where it's just weird teams and not very consistent teams at winning tournament games. So Sweet 16, 8-1 for South Dakota State, Elite 8, 25-1, and Final Four, 100-1. We're gonna see if we can get a long shot South Dakota State jackrabbit. The 6-year seniors all cruising through in that one. And we talked about Colgate Sweet 16, 20-1. And then we're going to go to the other side of things, Miami, USC, a little bit like the San Diego State Creighton. I think both Miami and USC could play with Auburn a little bit. So I have Miami Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, 5-1, 12-1, 33-1, and the same with the USC at 5-1, 12-1, 25-1. So I just think this bracket on the Midwest could get a little crazy. This will be the one that's a little wild. So I'd make some long shot plays and see if you could win some really, really big money out of that and see if you could cover your bets sort of for the weekend here. All right, that's our betting show. We'll be back Friday. We're going to record and see if we can do a little bit of, the second round matchup on Saturday. And then maybe we could do a little pop in for Sunday stuff. We'll see how that goes. But we'll be back on Friday to give you an update on the tournament, see if we can make some plays for the start of the second round. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to sign up for our NCAA Tournament contest. The link will be in the description below. Anything for you, Dynamite? Where can we find you and all your picks and plays?
You can follow me at GLN_D. I'm still kind of debating how I'm going to do my picks formats, but I'm definitely going to do picks for every day of the tournament. So look for that if you want to see what I'm officially putting down on my wagers.
All right. That's our show, and we're out.
There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it on. Whitburn.